what appears to be a quorum of commissioners present. So we're going to get into our business of the day. Thank you, Mr. Andrew, for getting us recorded. All right, we're going to call this meeting to order. And at this point in time, this is the, we'll do a roll call at this point, call to order. A roll call to make sure we validate all the commissioners that are present. So Commissioner Bolte.
Here.
Commissioner Fountain.
I just saw that he dropped off.
Okay. All right. Maybe
it was something I said.
Technical difficulties, maybe. Maybe he's still recovering from March Madness. Commissioner Sullivan.
Here.
All right. Commissioner Willie. Okay. We're going to make an assumption that Commissioner Fountain is just having technical difficulties and he'll jump back on. When he comes on, we'll validate, confirm his attendance, of course, for the record. But at this point, we have 3 commissioners present, which means we can move forward with the meeting. You had the minutes from the February 21st meeting sent out to you for review, and I would love to entertain a motion on the minutes that were sent out for last month's meeting. And just to verify, Commissioner Fountain for a roll call.
Yeah, I'm back.
He's back. Okay. Well, he was back. All right, let's move forward with the meeting minutes. I'll be more than happy to entertain any motion for the meeting minutes for last month. So hopefully the motion, I'll be willing to entertain any motion for the minutes.
A motion for approval.
All right, I have a Commissioner Sullivan move to approve the minutes. All right, I'm going to go ahead and second that motion so we can continue on with the business at hand and open up for any discussions, corrections, amendments, adjustments to the meeting minutes. Okay, hearing none, we're going to call the question. All those in favor of approving the February Housing Authority Commissioners meeting minutes as written and disseminated, please say aye. Aye.
Okay.
Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the motion for approval of the minutes passes. Thank you so much for that. I don't believe we have any old business to discuss, so we're going to move forward with new business. And this is the point in time where we hand it over to Director McGinnis. But I will say this before we get into this discussion here. We had an opportunity to hear about the resolutions that are being put forth to us today. There was no deliberation that took place during that time frame, but we did have a pre-meeting where we had an opportunity just to hear from and potentially ask questions of these resolutions. So I'm sure we will have some discussion and during this meeting as well too. But for those that are looking at this meeting, either live or recorded, please do understand that we have had a chance to look over these resolutions in detail prior, and that might explain why there's not as much discussion because we had some discussion prior to this. But again, nothing was acted on. This meeting is where we act on these resolutions. And so Director McGinnis, floor is yours, sir.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks to everybody for being here. We're going to go ahead and jump right into financial services. Turn it over to you, Teresa.
Okay, good afternoon. My first item is to act on a resolution approving budget revision number 1. This is resolution number 2022-05. HUD requires the Board of Commissioners to approve the project-based low-rent public housing operation budget. We are revising the original budget to more accurately align actual and projected costs to budget amounts. The purpose of this request is to obtain approval for the 3/31/2022 project-based low-rent public housing operated budget revision. HUD requires board approval. This budget reflects a net increase in unrestricted net position of $1,857,481 compared to a net increase in unrestricted net position of $57,062. The attachment is the budget revision. Explaining number one, total revenue has been increased by 21.37, and this is due to the gain on the disposition of land in the amount of $1,353,432 and invested income. Moving to number two, total administration costs has been increased by 6.56%, and this is explained by an increase in administrative salary and benefits, office expenses, travel, and training. Moving further down the page to number three, total tenant services increased by 6.4%, and this is due to an increase in virtual training classes and the Housing Authority Board of Commissioners training also. Moving forward to the second page of the revision of the operating budget, the total maintenance increase is explained by an increase in materials, and that was because we had approval to purchase stove and refrigerators for Todd Towers and Johnson Towers. We also had 7 heating and cooling replacements for Stone Manor. The Todd Tower balcony required also had a repair. And there was also an increase in maintenance contracts for Coward Construction, completing repairs for Butler Terrace, Johnson Towers, and the LR Patton. Also, the protective services line has been increased for the 24-hour security for Johnson and Todd Towers. Moving further down the page, the payment in lieu of taxes was also increased to represent a more realistic payout of what pilot would be for 2022. Under other, the casualty loss, we did have 1 unit that we had a casualty loss in at Lincoln Park for 3/31/2022. As we move further down the page, we have capital asset additions, the new roof at the maintenance shop, and purchases for a truck and a zero-turn mower. At this present time, this will be netting us, hopefully, an increase in unrestricted net position of $1,857,481. This is resolution number 2022-05 for your approval. And the HUD PHA board resolution document is attached.
Thank you for that. Commissioners, we've been presented with a request to act on a resolution approving the budget revisions as was relayed to us, and this is resolution 2022-05, and this is for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2022. Any motions for this resolution?
I motion for approval.
Commissioner, okay, Commissioner Sullivan moved, second by Commissioner Fountain. Any discussions related to this resolution? Now be the time. Right, well, it looks like we have no questions or discussions at this time about the resolution for budget revisions for fiscal year ending March 31st, 2022. So we'll call the question. All those in favor of the resolution, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it. Resolution passes. Thank you.
Thank you. My second item is to act on a resolution approving the budget of fiscal year end March 31st, 2023, resolution number 2022-06. HUD requires the Board of Commissioner approval for the project-based low-rent public housing operation budget. The request is to obtain approval for fiscal year end 3/31/2023. This is a HUD requirement. This budget reflects a net decrease in unrestricted net position of $71,387. The budget is attached, and the Executive Director, CEO recommends approval of the fiscal year end 3/31/2023 project-based low rent public housing operating budget.
Okay. Commissioners, we've been asked to act on a resolution approving the budget for fiscal year end March 31st, 2023. That information was sent out earlier to you, details on that. And at this time, I'll be willing to entertain any motions.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Fountain moved, Commissioner Sullivan second the motion. Discussions. I'll jump into one question I have at this point. So capital asset additions, how is that calculated? Because I noticed, of course, we didn't have it. I mean, it was on the revised budget, but when we look at the 2023 budget, we're not seeing any additions. So, I mean, is that something that we kind of address when the time comes where we feel like there's a shift in capital assets?
Yes, sir. When we find a need that we would need to purchase, then we would come to you and ask, and then I'll revise the budget. You had approved for us to buy trucks for the lawn care business, but I really didn't want to put that in because the inventory right now is hard to come by. And we're thinking maybe it would be good for this first year that we might lease a truck and see how our business operations go before making a $140,000 investment in vehicles. So at that time, if we need some new vehicles or if something else comes up, I would come before you and ask and revise the budget at that time.
But other than the vehicles, we're not thinking of any other significant capital assets that will be requested for this budget year.
Not at this time. We are planning for some capital asset additions, but those would come through the capital fund grant. So as far as the operating budget at this time, I don't see us requesting any going forward for 2023.
Okay. Any other questions about the operating budget for March 31st, 2023, resolution 2022-06? Okay. Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of resolution 2022-06, approving the budget for the fiscal year end March 31st, 2023, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, the resolution passes.
Thank you. My third item is to ask you to act on a resolution approving quarterly charge-offs for the period ending March 31st, 2022. The Huntsville Housing Authority has on its books $7,036.85 owed by former residents who vacated March 1st, 2021 through upcoming March 31st, 2022. The purpose of this request is to obtain approval to charge off $7,036.85 as collection loss for the quarter ending March 31st, 2022. This action is necessary to remove uncollectible accounts from HHA's books. The amount breaks down as follows: rent, $4,956.20. Maintenance charges, $626.65. Court costs, $386. Late charges, $960. Bulk cable of $108. The quarterly charge-off sheet is attached, and this is resolution number 2020-07. I would like to read the last line of this resolution, and it says, "Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of the Huntsville Housing Authority that the aforesaid accounts in the amount of $7,036.85 and any amounts related to vacates after this date and before April 1st, 2022 be charged off as collection loss on the books of HHA." So as we have tenants that vacate before March 31st, this amount will probably increase for those tenants that we will write off at the end of March. Resolution 2020-07.
Commissioners, we've been asked to act on resolution 2022-07, approving the quarterly charge-offs for the period ending March 31st, 2022, as presented. Willing to entertain any motions on this resolution?
A motion for approval.
Commissioner Sullivan moved,
Second.
All right, seconded by Commissioner Fountain. Open the floor for any questions or discussions for Ms. Teresa on this quarterly charge off. Okay, hearing now, we'll call the question. All those in favor of resolution 2022-07, approving the quarterly charge offs for the period of March 31st, 2022, please say aye.
Aye.
Are those opposed? Hearing none, that resolution also passes. Thank you.
Thank you. My last item is the presentation of cumulative low-income housing finance report for the period ending January 31st, 2022. Overall, at this time, our increase in unrestricted net position is $2,898,466.94. The explanations that are over 10% in the category of total general expenses is due to the payment in lieu of taxes is booked in March of each year. This line item is expected to be in line with the revised budget that you just approved. Also under other, the collection loss continues to be offset by collections of the MIS. The final quarter of the fiscal year will result in a higher write-off of accounts and should be in line with budget. The casualty loss credit that you see of $14,810 is due to the insurance proceeds that were received in January, but they will be offset by the expense to repair the unit. So overall, this is the presentation for January 31st, 2022. Do you have any questions about these financials? Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa.
You're welcome.
At this time, we have Ms. Terry, Public Housing Operations. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I have two items to bring before the board today. The first is to act on a resolution approving the revision to the utility allowance and flat rent schedules for public housing. A resolution is being submitted requesting the approval of revisions to the utility allowances and flat rents. HHA must review at least annually the basis on which utility allowances have been established and must revise the allowances of any one category it changes by greater than 10% in order to adhere to standards that were established by HUD. HUD issued new 2022 FMR, and small area fair market rent amounts in 2022, and also new guidance under PIH 2021-27. In addition, we had contracted Energy Consulting Incorporated to conduct a utility survey for the Huntsville and Madison County for 2022. Since their last update in March of 2021, electric allowances increased between 9 and 13%, and gas allowances increased between 5 and 12%, depending on the usage. Therefore, we were required to update our utility allowances. The increase in utility allowances will cause a reduction in rent payments by the tenants. The increase in utility allowances will have an offsetting decrease in rental revenue received by the housing authority for the same amount. Due to the small number of public housing residents that choose the flat rent option, approximately 50 families or 4% of public housing households, the economic impact of the revised flat rent schedule will be minimal. I would like to present for approval of the board a resolution acting to authorize the revision of the utility allowances and the flat rent schedule for public housing that will be effective May the 1st, 2022, and further resolves that the executive director CEO is hereby directed to operate in accordance with the revised allowances and schedules as approved.
Commissioners, we've been asked to act on a resolution 2022-08 as presented in reference to the approval of the utility allowance schedule and revisions to flat rate schedule for public housing. This time I'd be willing to entertain any motions.
Motion for approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sullivan, seconded by Commissioner Fountain. Any questions for Ms. Terry on these revisions or this resolution that we're asked to be acted on? Okay, hearing none.
Thank you. I neglected to say that is resolution 2022-08 that I submitted for your approval.
All right, thank you. So hearing no further questions, let's call the question. All those in favor of approving the resolution as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the resolution passes. Thank you.
Thank you. My second resolution is a resolution to authorize the executive director, CEO, contracting officer to enter into a contract for security guard services at Johnson Towers and Todd Towers. Huntsville Housing Authority issued a request for proposals to interested qualified companies to provide security guard services at Johnson and Todd. An RFP was issued on January 20th, 2022, requesting proposals from qualified vendors to provide security guard services. The proposals were due on February the 17th. 4 proposals were received, but only 2 were deemed responsive. 2 others were deemed unresponsive because they did not submit all of the required documents. The highest rated proposer was Securitas Security Services. It proposed to contract at a cost of $21.64 per hour with holiday rates as quoted at $31.87 per hour. The total annual cost for services will not exceed $200,000, as that is our budget for security services. Security services will be at 24 hours, 7 days a week at Johnson, and then various hours as needed at Todd. The security guard that will be at the Johnson Towers on a regular basis will also be checking Todd when there is not security on site. I would like to therefore ask the commissioners to act on a resolution authorizing the executive director, CEO, contracting officer to enter into a contract for security guard services at Johnson Towers and Todd Towers. This is resolution 2022-09 for your approval.
Commissioners, we've been asked to act upon a resolution 2022-09 authorizing the executive director to enter into a contract for security guard services at Johnson Towers and Todd Towers. I'll be willing to entertain any motion.
A motion for approval.
A second.
Okay, Commissioner Sullivan motion, Commissioner Fountain second. Seconded, and so now we will ask any questions of Ms. Terry that you may have. I have a question I'd like to throw out there, if you don't mind. So what do we know about Securitas? They're not a local firm to the area, are they?
I do not know. I'm sorry to say.
Okay.
Let me, if you want me to get that information to you later? Because I just cannot answer that at this point.
Yeah.
I can get it for you. You can move on to another item and I'll get that and we can come back to that, or however you want to handle that.
Yeah, I don't think it's so much I'm asking.
Although, as you realize, we cannot look at that as one of the factors in looking at the proposals.
Sure, absolutely. I was probably, that's what I was gonna say. I'm not gonna hold up the vote on that. I think we've kind of talked about beforehand about, wanting to, whenever possible, kind of take a look at least look and evaluate, vendors and whether they're local vendors or not. And so that was my question, but it's something we can easily follow up on after the fact, Ms. Terry. So, okay. Any other questions?
Just a quick question, Terry. You said the security guard at Johnson will be able to check on Todd. Will he have a camera or be able to look at the site, or will he physically be going over to Todd to check on it when there's no security guard there?
We do have a security camera system at both sites. It is not capable of the Johnson cameras cannot see the Todd ones. You have to be on site to see that. We are currently working, trying to get a new vendor to upgrade our camera systems so that we have a better handle on our security. That's an ongoing, I don't want to say problem. It's an ongoing process right now of upgrading that. I will definitely put that to the vendor if that's a possibility, to have cameras where you could see what was going on at Todd while you're at Johnson. But currently that is not something that we have in place.
So for the time being, he'd just be doing just ride over and check on it, I guess. It sounds like the security problems are a lot more extensive at Johnson Towers. But we said because location than Todd. Yeah.
Yes, it's based on the location of Johnson Towers and its proximity to the Salvation Army and to busy streets.
Right. It's very busy through there. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all I had.
Okay. There's no further questions. We will call the question, and all those in favor of approving resolution 22-09, authorizing the executive director to enter into a contract for security guard services at Johnson Towers and Todd Towers, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it unanimously. The resolution passes. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank
All right,
you.
thanks again, Terry. Appreciate it. Assisted housing, we'll have a presentation by Ms. Coleman. Lacey.
Good afternoon. I'm asking the board to act on the resolution 2022-10, approving revisions to the administrative plan for the Housing Choice Voucher Program, specifically as it relates to interim reexaminations and homeownership. The purpose of this resolution is to align with HUD regulations as it relates to interim reexaminations and the expansion of our homeownership opportunities for all of HHA residents. The revision to the interim reexamination is to change it from having to report every 10 days as your income increases or decreases to an annual basis, and also to align with HUD's regulation that you don't have to report as your income increases. And the other side of that, which is the homeownership side, we want to make sure that all of our residents and all of our programs be able to access the homeownership education portion.
Commissioners, you've heard Deputy Executive Director Coleman present resolution 2022-10, asking us to act on a resolution approving revision to the Housing Choice Voucher Program Administrative Plan. At this time, I entertain any motions.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Fountain moved. Commissioner Sullivan provided the second for the motion. Any discussions for Deputy Executive Director Coleman? I just want to, I guess I'll throw out there, again, kind of a genesis for this. My understanding is that we're trying to provide the residents with an opportunity to try to get to a better place financially, correct? And have it to where they have a little bit more of an opportunity to try to having some finances and budgeting that's a little bit allowing them to have some breathing room to be able to kind of advance. Is that the general premise for this?
That is correct.
Yeah, I'll say this. I really appreciate the fact that this was something that was looked into, knowing that it's not a HUD requirement. I know our name is a little bit of a misnomer in terms of a housing authority, the Huntsville Housing Authority, and it seems to be all about authority and governance and policies and procedures. And we all know that's part of what we have to do with these federal dollars coming in. But I think as we talked about, even in our strategic planning, it's the thought process that we want to find even the small ways to help our residents kind of get up and out more sufficient and sustainable, and recognizing that we have some policies that people will kind of talk about as being kind of micro, contrary to what we're trying to do. These little small policies, at the end of the day, when you add all these things together, it makes the weight and the challenge of trying to lift yourself up and out even that much more of an issue. So I just want to say hats off to you guys for taking a look at all your policies and being able to start to chip away at some of these challenges that keeps folks from being able to get up and out and moving on. So appreciate that. Any other discussions or comments or thoughts about this resolution that's been presented? Okay, hearing none, we'll call it. All those in favor of resolution 2022-10, approving a revision to the Housing Choice Voucher Program Administrative Plan, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, ayes have it, resolution passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Terkesa. Next, we have Human Resources, Ms. Jones.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I am asking the board to approve a resolution for approval to amend Huntsville Housing Authority's Personnel Policy Manual, revising policy number E06, substance abuse. HHA's personnel policy number E06, substance abuse, needs to be amended to clarify the wording and to define terms. For example, the term reasonable suspicion. Also, the testing procedures have been outlined so that employees can know step by step the process that Huntsville Housing Authority will use. The purpose of this request is to obtain board approval to amend HHA's Personnel Policy Manual, revising policy number E06, substance abuse. The justification and description is companies who use pre-employment drug and alcohol tests use them to determine if a prospective hire uses illicit substances or abuse prescription medication. Many employers have found that pre-employment testing drastically reduces their candidate pool and may exclude valuable employees. Testing guidelines are changing in order to capture these valuable employees. HHA has expanded its procedures for drug and alcohol testing so that the process is clear to applicants and also to employees. The reasons are outlined in this revised policy, but they are not all inclusive. The impact is minimal. We have attached personnel policy number E06, substance abuse. The executive director, CEO, recommends that the amendment to HHA's personnel policy manual, policy number E06, substance abuse, be adopted by the Board of Commissioners. And this is resolution number 2022-11. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms.
Carol.
Jones, this is Jim Bolte. Thank you for your presentation. A fine job as always.
Thank you.
Will the drug testing be checking for the illegal drug marijuana?
Not at first, no.
The policy doesn't exclude it. Do we need to change the policy?
Well, before we get into discussion about the policy, I want to make sure that we have a motion for discussion, so we kind of keep with our procedural. So there's been a motion on the table, resolution 2022-11. Before we go into any discussion, I just want to make sure we have a motion so we can get into a discussion on any motions. Anyone want to provide a motion for this resolution?
I'll motion for approval.
Okay, all right. Any second? I'll second. I don't think it's anything wrong with me seconding, so we'll second. And now let's get into discussion on this one. So Commissioner Bolte, if you don't mind.
So Ms. Jones, why are you excluding marijuana?
I would ask Mr. McGinnis to comment after I comment, but the reason that we are excluding marijuana is because it reduces our candidate pool, and it may exclude some employees who are not using on the job, but they may be using after hours. And so therefore, we have decided that we would not test for marijuana. Now, if there is an accident or an incident, and we will test for the 5-panel drugs, which includes marijuana. I checked with our workers' comp, and I was told by them that we did not have to do the testing in order for them to continue to carry us for workers' comp injuries and accidents.
Tony, do you have
Can y'all hear me? All right, I think one of the things that we're looking to do as we look at one of the priorities in our strategic plan is to help our residents become more self-sufficient. So one of the things that we're doing is eliminating the pre-employment drug screen. And that includes everything. So if there's an accident or an incident, then those who are involved in the accident or incident will be drug tested, as Ms. Jones indicated. I don't think we're excluding anything. What we're asking for at this point is to remove the pre-employment so that we won't necessarily limit our employee pool as we go out and try to recruit, especially those individuals in and around our neighborhood that we're trying to get employed. And hopefully by doing this, we'll have a greater candidate of employees that we can train up and let them know what the policy is all about and give them opportunity to take advantage of some of the income opportunities that we're going to be presenting as we move forward.
Thank you. But this policy also includes random drug testing of existing employees, correct?
We
Yes,
may,
it does.
but we're not. We may, but I don't see the need in us doing that at this point in time. But it does say in our policy that we may. But at this current time, that's not something that we are looking to put forward.
So if you do a random drug test, will it include marijuana?
If we do, yes.
What are your plans for doing random drug tests from a timing point of view? Have you thought about that?
Yes, at the current time, we don't plan on doing them, but we want to keep them in our policy just in case there is a need for us to do it as we move forward.
Okay, I will not be voting for this policy. I mean, I won't be voting yes for this policy. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussions in reference to this?
Yeah, just a question is I take it in the past, we've had a number of applicants fail drug tests. So for pre-employment, on a pre-employment basis, is that fair enough, Tony? I mean, is that?
Yes.
So.
Well, I think what has happened in the past, it limits who actually will apply for a job. They won't even go because of whatever they might have. This goes ways back to some of the kids that we've had in the program. They won't even apply for a position with us because of, trying to be clean or get clean. They won't even apply. So it kind of stems from us just being able to just kind of streamline the process a little bit and get those who we know. I mean, we know that there's an issue, but what we're trying to do is get people employed as well.
Yeah, I remember.
And Tony, can I add some language here as well? And we also want to make sure that we are keeping in line with what industry is asking for. So right now, there's a number of other organizations and companies locally that are looking at their policies. Toyota, for example, they're become very progressive in their processes of how they recruit and retain their employees. And looking at their drug testing structure has changed dramatically. And so we want to make sure that we keep in line with those same industry practices as well.
What about HUD from the HUD standpoint? Is this other housing authorities gone this route?
I don't know. I can't speak to that.
Okay.
Yeah, neither.
And so I guess to add to this discussion on this, you may not know, but when there's a random drug test that's done, or previously, if you're testing for drugs for someone to be hired, do you know how long that period goes back that their test would pick up on? Is it like a hair test? What is it that they're actually testing, and for how long does it go back?
We do a urine test at an occupational health group.
Okay. Right. But the thought process is somebody sees our policy and they want to work for the housing authority to get a good job opportunity. They apply. At the time that they apply, there's no reasonable suspicion that they are under the influence of any type of illicit or illegal substance or abusing prescription drugs as well. Then that person applies. If they meet the candidacy requirements for that position, the job requirements for the position, they're potentially offered and hired. And as long as that person performs well on the job and there's no reasonable suspicion of any use of any illicit drugs, pharmaceuticals, otherwise, then we would not be looking at trying to implement any type of testing. But random tests are still something that's within the purview of the housing authority to implement when it deems or suspects that there may be an issue. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And we will also make sure that once we do that, all of the employees will know that this is something that we're about to implement.
Okay. Okay. Any further discussions on this motion? Okay.
Yeah, I've got kind of mixed emotions about it. I'm all for trying to broaden the drug pool and really for being compassionate and tolerant. Tony and I worked on this a while back with our encampment guys when the previous housing authority director agreed to hire them, and we waived the pre-employment drug test for the young guys, and they were just working part-time running weed eaters and stuff. So I'm all about that. But from from a risk management standpoint, with, you know, what I do in insurance for a living, the post-accident drug testing, I think, is important. I heard what Ms. Jones said about the workers' comp carriers, but I know most of the workers' comp carriers out there prefer post-accident testing. But on the pre-employment side, I see the logic and see where direction you want to go there. So anyway, got some reservations about that.
Yeah, I think for us, I mean, just dealing in the community, I mean, you've been there for years. You know the kind of candidate we're trying to get on board and some of the struggles that they have. I think what covers us mainly is the post-accident screen that will allow us to kind of align with what our insurance carrier is asking us to do. You know, and for us, man, to get really individuals who not necessarily always are our residents, but they frequent our resident buildings, their fathers and brothers who still unknown to us are living in apartments and are trying to do better. And I just feel like this is an opportunity for us to put people to work so they can get up and out and hopefully transition a family to that next level. And this has been one of the barriers that we've been faced with, and just giving us an opportunity to just kind of be proactive. And what happened for me is when we went into the meeting with Toyota Mazda, and I heard how they're being progressive in some of the drug procedures that they have, even allowing up to 90 days, even after a positive test, for people to get better and be retested. And I just started looking at some of the other industries who are out here who are just kind of like, we need employers. I know Target has totally eliminated some of their pre-employment drug screens as well. And again, for me, it just goes back to the individuals in the communities that we're trying to serve, giving them an opportunity to get on their feet and have an opportunity to apply for some of the employment opportunities we have here at the Housing Authority. Because again, I know if we can employ them, they can be positive and more productive in the communities that they're just kind of hanging out in. Put them to work for 30, 28, 30 hours a week, and hopefully we'll start to see the community change in a positive way that we're hoping for.
So I may have misunderstood. We are going to continue post-incident, post-accident. Okay.
Yes.
I misunderstood that. I apologize.
Commissioner Sullivan, I see you off mute. I just want to make sure before we call the question that you've had a chance to ask any questions.
Yeah, I'm you know, I've been in these communities for, I don't know, over 20 years. I had a group of 20 young men. The city asked me to give them 10, and I couldn't give them 2 of those. 5 of those young men end up in prison. So without me putting a personal touch, that's why I didn't say anything. I get what we're trying to do here, and I'm all for it. So no, I don't have any other.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. Similar to you, I'll speak to just kind of some personal experience being at Alabama A&M University and seeing some of the brightest students come through that college that are going to be great employees for some employers coming through. And the reality when you're the boots on the ground is you recognize that illegal or not, that there are periods of time in people's lives where they make certain decisions, whether that be smoking weed, whether that be not paying their taxes on time, or maybe fibbing on things that, it's just not, at the end of the day, it's not legal and it's not what we would consider to be right. But I also know that those students would, for the most part, come to the class ready to learn. And it is one of those things that I think as long as we are not in a place where we are relying on heavy equipment and major. I mean, I would not want to think about my airline pilot necessarily having engaged in some things, and not the excuse, but, you know, understanding. And again, I mean, you see many cities, and I'm looking just online, I'm Googling different housing authorities and their policies on drugs. And I'm seeing that there is a definite movement to say, in order to open up this pool, that we should be considering removing that screening requirement for initial applicants. But I think the fail-safe for us all here is that the housing authority still has the ability, at the time of an applicant applying, or at the time that there's an issue, or after the applicant applies and is hired, at any given time, we're not taking away that right for us to test for any illegal or abuse of pharmaceuticals that might exist. And of course, I talk about abuse of pharmaceuticals because I think the term was illicit drugs and abuse of pharmaceuticals, which, as we all know, with opioid and many of these issues, that can be just as concerning for employees that are on the job who might be partaking in some type of activity that would hinder their ability to perform their job well. So,
yeah, finally, let me say that I think this approval of this policy puts the housing authority at risk. I think we do have maintenance tools and cutting machines. We drive vehicles that could run into somebody and kill them. And I hope that we can defend our position on this policy if the person driving the vehicle was, you know, under the influence of marijuana. I hope the housing authority can defend themselves that way. That's why I'm going on record to say I don't agree with this. Thank you.
That was a question I had based on the chairman's comments about operating equipment and machinery. And then are our drivers, there was something in the wording, I don't see it right now, about DOT and our vehicle operators. Does this exclude them as well?
Our drivers are not under the DOT or the ALDOT. I checked with counsel on that, and they are not subject to the DOT and the ALDOT requirements.
Do we run regular motor vehicle reports on our drivers? I assume our insurance company does that for us.
We don't run a regular report on our drivers.
We should have something in place there, because I mean, we could, as Mr. Bolte spoke of, I mean, with the liability with people operating our vehicles that are agency owned out there, and there should be annually, I would say, checking their motor vehicle report to make sure they don't have excessive violations. And normally the insurance carrier will provide that service for you at no charge. So maybe be something we want to look into.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So let's make sure that for the minutes that we have Commissioner Bolte's comments and objections noted, so that when the next meeting minutes come out, we can make sure that is properly allocated or annotated. This point in time, I think we've had enough discussion, so we're going to call the question, and all those in favor of Resolution 2022-11, approving amending the Huntsville Housing Authority's Personnel Policy Manual, revising policy number E-06, substance abuse. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay. All right, just to make sure that we have a correct counting on this, if you believe this is appropriate, Attorney Raleigh, should we do a roll call on this one?
You certainly can. I think that if you need to indicate the opposition, then I mean, I think we clearly heard Mr. Bolte say he is in opposition to it.
Okay.
I don't think that Ms. Willie made the meeting. That would be you, Commissioner Sullivan, and Commissioner Fountain in favor by my tally. But I mean, you could call the passage from what you heard.
Okay.
You can do a roll call if you want, but we do have the opposition listed.
All right, I just want to make sure that my ears were hearing me correctly on the ayes. So the ayes have it, and the resolution passes. Thank you so much.
I would request that it is in the minutes that I declined, okay? Or that I opposed. So please name me, okay?
Okay.
Yeah,
All
just
right.
could I ask a question of our counsel, Mr. Riley? Rich, did you or somebody from your human resource department legally up there consult on this, or do you have any opinion?
Sure. Ms. Jones frequently works with Walter Kelly in our office, and she worked through the policy changes with that. There is no legal objection to the policy. The policy as just passed is legally sound. You know, and obviously the upsides and downsides to the carrying out of the policy is something that we leave to the commissioners yourselves. And everyone has their own opinion on those things. She did run it by workers' comp as well, I'm aware.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. And, you know, just a comment, I'll just say my vote's a vote of confidence for Tony and the leadership of the Housing Authority. I believe in your judgment, and if that's the direction that we're going in, I vote aye.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next action item. And so Executive Director McGinnis.
All right, I will go on to real estate development. Thank you, Ms. Jones.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am going to be asking the board to table action item 1 to act on a resolution authorizing the executive director, CEO, contracting officer to enter into a master development agreement with the Michaels Group. It is resolution 2022-12. Based on our preliminary board meeting, we thought it prudent that we get copies of the master development agreement out to the commissioners for their review before we have a final vote on that. So that's what I have on action item 1.
Okay, so you're going to table that resolution, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
All right. I'm asking the board to act on a resolution 2022-13 for the approval for disposal of vacant lands at Derrick Street properties. The Huntsville Housing Authority seeks board approval to dispose of the excess unused lots at Derrick Street. The Huntsville Housing Authority has determined we have no future use for the land. These 2 parcels do not fall under HUD's jurisdiction. Therefore, the executive director, contracting officer seeks a quick disposition of these parcels through a board resolution.
Okay, so we have a resolution that's been presented to us, commissioners, asking us to approve disposition of vacant land at Derrick Street properties. We had some knowledge about this in our pre-board meeting. I think we know where this is located. A map has been provided to us about the location. We appreciate providing that information to us. At this time, anyone have any desire to present a motion for this resolution?
I motion for approval.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Sullivan provided a motion. It was seconded by Commissioner Fountain. Any discussions or questions as it relates to this resolution? Okay, hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of resolution 2022-13, approving the disposition of vacant land at Derrick Street properties, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, resolution passes. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. Action item 3 is I'm asking the board to act on resolution 2022-14, act on a resolution authorizing the submission of a disposition application to the Special Application Center at HUD for the sale of excess land at Gateway. What we've done so far is we need the board's approval to sell this parcel. We have an agreement with Huntsville Hospital that is at fair market value. We have met with the residents of Gateway Place and informed them of our intention. We have started that process, but as part of the process, and also we are awaiting approval, a letter of approval from local governmental officials. So we're awaiting a letter from the mayor for that as it's part of the application process. So the other item we need is a board resolution approving this action for the sale.
All right, commissioners, it's been presented to us to act on a resolution 2022-14 authorizing the submission of a disposition application to the Special Application Center at HUD for the sale of excess land at Gateway Place. This time I'd be willing to entertain a motion.
I move for approval of the resolution as presented.
Commissioner Fountain motioned. Second, any seconds?
Second.
Commissioner Sullivan presented a second here. Open the floor up for any discussions or questions or comments. I'll say this, I know for the commissioners that have been on for a little bit of time, we have known about this parcel of excess land, as that was what we're calling it at Gateway Place, knowing that there were some concerns about that. And I know we wanted to make sure that we were able to be good stewards and work with the hospital on potential opportunity to leverage this land to fill some needs that they have as well too. So again, I mean, it's nice. It's one thing when we sell land for commercial use and development, and that's great as it relates to housing. And there's an opportunity for us to work with that hospital to be a good partner with them, strategic partner in this process at the same time. So it was good to see this come to a resolution, or hopefully appear to come to a resolution here once we call the question. So good job there. Great work.
I agree with that.
Great. All right. If no other discussions or comments, yep.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, sir. I've also attached a parcel map for you for your review. So that should be in today's meeting's minutes.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, we'll call the question. All those in favor of resolution 2022-14, authorizing the submission of disposition application to the Special Application Center at HUD for the sale of excess land at Gateway Place. It's a mouthful. Please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, unanimous. The resolution passes. Thank you.
And the last point I have for you guys is we talked about the presentation on the formation of the advisory committee with industry leaders to review pro forma for the Michaels Group organization. The only point I would like to add to that is, would the Board of Commissioners like to have an invitation to those meetings as they start to begin? If so, I'm happy to make sure that you all are included. They're going to be in-person meetings here at our in our boardroom, but I will give you guys time enough to be present if you so choose.
Yes, I would like an invitation, sir. This is Commissioner Sullivan.
Okay.
Me too, Commissioner Fountain.
Okay. Any others? Okay, Commissioner Sullivan.
Fountain, I think we're in good hands.
Okay. Okay, well, great. That's all I have.
And both sat on the RFP evaluation committee, so it'll be a continuation of our interest in the property, the redevelopment.
Well, thank you. I look forward to your input.
Thank you.
And that's all I have for you, Commissioner.
Commissioners.
Thank you, AJ.
Executive Director McGinnis, I think we've acted on all the resolutions that have been presented for us. And then at this point in time in the agenda, we'd love to hear from you in terms of any comments that you have.
All right, I appreciate everybody and working through this agenda today. We had a lot of items on the table, but definitely were able to get through them, and I appreciate that. I know that last meeting, you wanted us to give you an update on just some of the strategic bullets that we had in our strategic plan to see where we are as it relates to progress and where we are going. I think Neil is still on and he's going to share his screen, and we will just kind of give a quick update on the progress and where we are, and just get any input from anybody who may have some input, or you'll be able to ask any questions. So Neil, if you don't mind, just kind of sharing your screen with everybody and just kind of walking us through, and I'll just prompt you to the slides as they come up.
All right, just a moment. Can you all view my screen?
Yes.
Okay, what we want to do with this slide is just kind of stay with the original makeup of the strategic plan. And if you can go ahead to the next screen. Next screen. We sent this story out about one of our residents as it relates to home ownership and FSS program, which is again one of the primary priorities, our first priority as it relates to helping families become self-sufficient. If you didn't get a chance to read the story, then it's included in a newsletter that Lindsay Pollard sent out. So just a really good read. Next. Okay, so we'll get right into it. Strategic priority number one, promote and achieve a stronger commitment to self-sufficiency. So what I've asked each department, Section 8 and Housing Choice Voucher and Home Ownership, I've asked them to provide us with numbers from back in August, from August up until now, just on the amount of people we've actually had in the family self-sufficiency program. And in public housing, we have 119 participants in our FSS and tax credit program. We have 1,115 participants in our HSV FSS program in Housing Choice Voucher. And in the home ownership, we have 2 individuals that are currently seeking to purchase a home, and we have 35 in the home search portal, which just means they're out looking for home ownership. And again, as we talk about just promote and achieve a stronger commitment to self-sufficiency, I just feel like our staff is doing a great job of really getting information in front of our residents. And with the additional partnership with Toyota Mazda, we're actually having a job fair on April, I think it's the 21st. And we're going to target our Northwoods community and our Searcy Homes community. And we're going to target the family self-sufficiency participants, because we feel like those participants are prime candidates, because once their income goes up, their money goes into an escrow, especially for Section 8, not necessarily in public housing. But I feel like we have enough participants right now. I know they have about 1,200 jobs they need to fill, but with us partnering with them, we have identified a target audience that will hopefully give them an opportunity to make a livable wage. And with the policy that was approved through Section 8 through Turkisa, it would also help them understand that, yeah, we're going to help you get a job, and your rent is not just going to go up that very next month once you have a job that can take care of your family and some of the needs that you have. Next page. So that's strategic priority number one. Priority number two is forge creative collaborations with community partners. So what we've done in every community, we've identified all the resources that are in a community. As you can see, we're breaking it down community by community. And if the community has a partner that we have partnered with in the past, or we're trying to partner, what we've done is just reach back out to them, identify the hours of operation, and then try to provide a place for the residents to go and to meet. And so what we've done is we've done this in every community. We're going to be coming out with a community brochure that identifies all of the community partners that we have throughout the organization, the hours that they operate. If there's not a particular service in a neighborhood, we're going to make sure that resident services transport residents back and forth to the different locations where the partnerships are provided. So you can see Northwood, next slide. We have Johnson Towers, Todd Towers. I'm really excited about the Legacy Center partnership at Johnson Towers. We're actually, they have a decommissioned unit over there that at one point in time was a clinic. The Legacy Center is going to partner with us, paint that facility, get it back up and going, and provide doctors who can come over a couple of times a week and do some health screens and checkups on our residents at Johnson Towers. And that service will be available also for the residents at Todd at some point. Then we also have the Oakwood Mobile Market that goes to all of our neighborhoods, providing fresh fruit and vegetables through the neighborhood at least a couple of times a week. Next slide. Butler Terrace has a plethora of information as well. You know, there's a lot of community partners that sometimes we don't necessarily think about, but having the Boys and Girls Club, Inner City Learning, Valley Arts, Partnership for Drug-Free Community out in Northwood and making our residents aware of those services has been really big for us too. Then we got the Family Life Center, Cooperative Extension System at LR Patton. And then we have the YMCA Early Childhood Education Center at LR Patton as well. Next slide. And then these are some of the resources in Lincoln Park. Again, I don't think we've really taken advantage of the partnership at the Boys and Girls Club. And so that's something that we're going to be doing in Lincoln. Lincoln Village Ministries, we've reached out to that organization as well. They've been working with some of our kids, and this is our resident service staff at the bottom. They've really started to get engaged with our partners and really just kind of bridge some gaps that were kind of broken just kind of through the years. And so hopefully everybody understands that we're back in business. We're open to the community. We're open for collaborative, creative partnerships. And I think it's going to be good because there are a lot of services that we just can't provide that our partners can provide. Next slide. Priority 3 was to maintain the housing authority as a high performer. We actually, here recently, just a few days ago, we reached out to some of our partners. Well, we reached out to Department of HUD to get a waiver. Although our scores are standard, the scores that we've been getting, they're standard, but because we've been a high performing agency, we're trying to get our scores waived. What I want to do with this is maybe after we've done all of our inspections, have public housing give us an update on what these numbers mean so that the board can understand exactly what they're meaning. And to let you know that we are taking care of our property. There are some things that we need to put in place that would allow us to be a better organization. And I think these scores are a good indication of where we are just based off of a 2-year, I don't want to say just 2 years of COVID, not being able to go in and do all of the preventive maintenance that we've done in the past. And so our scores are not bad. They're pretty standard across the board. I was on a call the other day and somebody said that the average score throughout the housing authorities is about an 86. We're above that in most of our areas. But again, because we've been a high performer for so long, we're trying to get a waiver and see if we can get back to our high performance standards. And that's something that we're going to work on because that's a priority for us, is to maintain that. Next slide. Priority number 4 is to drive entrepreneur innovations. Of course, back in December, we were able to sell the Pollard Circle land. We've also received $250,000 for the Envision Center, with AJ selling the Derrick Street land, that's going to be an additional 41,000. And then he's working on the disposition of the Gateway land. And we also have been working with some developers to see if we can develop the property at Ben Royal. There's a 2.5 acre plot of land that right now we're not doing anything with. So hopefully we can get some developers involved to come out and see exactly what we can do to develop that property. We've gotten plenty of calls on our property at Meadow Hills and Mahogany Road. So we'll be working through those to kind of drive some of that entrepreneurial innovation. And then priority number 5, expand housing access and choice. Working with the city to do the CNI grant is going to be huge, and just giving them an opportunity to have some input. We've actually gotten the hospital involved. AJ's created a great partnership with the hospital. They want to get involved on that project. And not only the Sparkman, the Huntsville CNI grant, but also on the Sparkman Homes project. And so you'll be getting more information on those 2 sites and the partnerships that we're looking to create as it relates to expanding our housing choice. Priority number 6, conduct business operations with increased efficiency and effectiveness. We're in the process of making sure that every department has a standard operating procedure in place. Turquesa has been working extremely hard to get that in line based on the consulting that we received through Quadell and the recommendations that they provided. I think one of the ways in us to make sure that we're doing business more effectively is just making sure that every department has a standard operating procedure. That's one of the first things that I really thought that we need to do when I first got back to the agency. We just need to make sure everybody's operating on the same path. We have a blueprint that everybody can go by. And then next page, number 7, is just making sure that we promote a healthy and engaged, productive workforce. One of the things that we're doing with this is on, I think it was February, we started our first session of Leadership Academy, something that we're doing inside the organization on Fridays, one Friday out of the month for 6 months, with leaders throughout the organization who feel like they want to be trained up. We're having leadership opportunities for them. They're taking about 4 hours off on Fridays on their off day to come in and learn some training, to get coached up in such a way that they can become the next leaders, and really helping us with a plan for the future leaders of the organization. And so that's pretty much all that we have. I'll take any comments or questions at this point. Thanks, Neil. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Tony, I'll say this, appreciate you giving us this update. I love the presentation format, and I also love the numbers being put there as well too. So it's not just thoughts about what you're going to do, but you're listing partners and names and numbers that you've hit or you're looking to hit. So this is something that emerged from our discussion, which is to kind of move more into a strategic mindset and culture, and what you're doing here and tying it back to the strategic plan that was put in place is really good to see. So just kudos to you and the team for continue to drive this mission.
And that's it for us. We'll just turn it back over.
Okay. All right, going back to our agenda, I think I asked this earlier. Well, maybe I didn't. Neil, do we have any public comments? Anyone put in for any public comments? I don't see any.
We do not.
Okay. So at this point, we'll provide the floor to the commissioners to make any comments that they would like to. And we'll start with Commissioner Fountain. Commissioner Fountain, any comments?
Just reporting back on the announcement I made last week. The Cersei Homes block party and serve day was outstanding Saturday. Quentin Young from our staff from Resident Services was there with his family, and he outlasted me. I left around lunchtime and they were still there, but the volunteers cleaned up some of the landscaping pieces there on the corners of the property. You'll notice if you go by, they are really sharp and trimmed and mulched and cleaned up really good. And then we had a bicycle mechanic who was fixing bikes for the kids and working on some used bikes to get those in shape to give out. We registered about 12 kids, I think, for baseball. That was really well attended by the youth and children. The adults, it was cold and windy and kind of rough out there. We didn't get as good a turnout as we'd like, but I just, in closing, would say going forward, I'm sure Tony get this included on our master calendar. The first Saturday of the month is going to be Northwood's serve days and block parties, and then the third Saturday each month, I think Cersei's planning on following suit there, and they're collaborating and using a lot of the same volunteers and providers, but the local churches and nonprofits really seem to be gaining some momentum and get behind it. And it's a good day to get out and meet residents, and don't tell them you're on the housing authority board. If they find that out, they'll seek you out and start asking questions and making demands about their rent and everything else. But it's a good event and good opportunity to get out with our customers. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fountain. Appreciate that. Commissioner Sullivan, any comments?
No, I guess I do. I just want to say thank you all for your efforts. This family self-sufficiency goal, or all the things you're putting in place. Most notably, what I've noticed is that you're trying to use the policy to help our residents versus hurt or hinder them. So big thanks to you all for doing that. I look forward to diving in. And this is the first board meeting that I think I've been a part of in a long time where it warmed my heart. I'm not going to go into the delving from public housing guy, but believe me, what you're doing is appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. Commissioner Bolte?
Yeah, while I don't agree with the substance abuse policy, I do accept the vote as was voted in total. The last preliminary meeting we had, there was some language and labels that were used personally to me, and I'd like to respond to that. Just let me tell you how I operate and why I'm on this board. You know, the two greatest commandments are to love God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind. And the second is to love people. I mean, basically, it's love people. And that's people of all backgrounds, people of all races, economic positions, etc. So I'm really hoping, this is what I try to do, is to narrow the gap in all of these areas, regardless of their skin color, especially as it comes to safe and affordable housing on this board, and to promote self-reliance, like we heard earlier. You know, he who pursues two things, righteousness and love, finds life, prosperity, and honor. And that's what I want for our residents. A good life, prosperity, and honor. So, you know, that's why I'm on this board. So I hope that we can have more love and less labels. Let's use words that are wise and understanding and professional. There's no excuse not to. We don't need to widen the gap. We need to close the gap. So I hope we can, you know, I haven't heard from anybody since last meeting, and I hope that we can work together in unity and not division going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bolte. I've relayed my comments before to earlier for the day with just, again, kudos. And I'll affirm what I heard from Commissioner Sullivan. It's good to see that us making strides to understand that there are these little things that are keeping our residents from being able to achieve everything that I think Commissioner Bolte is relaying for us. And it's good to see us recognize those things and to take steps and actions accordingly. So appreciate it. And I think we've got all the comments here. Appreciate everybody's time. I know we've gone a little bit longer than usual, but we had a lot of great things to discuss, and look forward to the next time we get together. So everybody be safe, and this meeting is adjourned. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.